Welcome to the fourth meeting of the Interim Joint Agriculture Committee. We always enjoy the time before the meeting to fellowship, and feel free to hang around after the meeting for some additional fellowship. We'll get the process started here. Let's just call the roll.
Senator Carpenter, Senator Caslin, Senator Givens, Senator Howell, Senator Parrott, Senator Thayer.
Here.
Senator Webb, Senator West, Senator Westerfield, Senator Wise,
Here.
Senator Callaway, Representative Callaway, Representative Dixon,
Present.
It's not a
Representative Dossett, Representative Pfister, Representative Flood, Representative Graham, Representative Hart,
Here.
Representative Herron, Representative Imes,
Here.
Representative Kim King,
Present.
Representative Cook, Representative Kulkarni,
Present.
Representative McPherson, Representative Pollock,
Here.
Representative Pratt,
Here.
Representative Rayburn, Representative Raymond, Representative Reed, Representative Stevenson, Representative Tate,
Here.
Representative Thomas,
Present.
Representative Tipton,
Here.
Senator Hornback, co-chair, and Chairman Representative Heath.
here.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum, and welcome again. The chair would entertain a motion now to approve the meetings from both the July and the August meetings.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. And the motion carried. We'll go right into our meeting. Our first on our guest is our overview for a biodiesel blending facility. And we'll ask our guest to come to the table and make sure your mic is on. The green light will light up when it's on. You may have to pull it up close for it to pick you up, but when you get situated there, just introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours. Is your green light on? Okay, you'll have to pull it up.
There we go.
Now can hear you now.
Good deal. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for having us here today. My name's Steve Morris. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Hemisphere Limited, and as well as Continental Refining. I've got my colleague Matt York with me as well. He's an analyst. And we just wanted to come and give you an overview of the project that we've got going on in Somerset. We're extremely excited about it. Kind of going to start with a little bit of a history of Continental, kind of where it started and what's gotten us to where we are today. It's the old Somerset oil. Anybody that's from southeastern Kentucky would be familiar with Somerset oil. Big employer in the region. Was around since the 30s when they first built the oil refinery. It went through some tough times after 2000, several ownership changes, a bankruptcy, and then finally in 2012, Demetrius Hasiotis purchased the facility. That's him on the bottom right there. He spent about a year going through the plant. We got it reopened first part of 2013 and actually operated it as an oil refinery for the next 6 years. Our goal, taking that facility that, again, was mostly past its prime, our goal was to continually upgrade it, bring it into the current times. Unfortunately, by early 2018, the shape of the plant, we struggled to get a consistent quality supply of crude oil, so we made the decision to shut the plant down in 2018. We then spent the better part of the next 2 years. Our goal was to literally rebuild the refinery from the ground up. unfortunately, through the engineering and cost estimating process, $150 million project more than doubled. At that level, it just wasn't a sustainable project for us to tackle. So after walking around in kind of a discouraged and bad mood, we started refocusing. What could we do with this 77 acres we had? We still had some limited infrastructure, and that led us to biodiesel. Easy leap for us. We knew how to make fuel. We knew how to sell fuel. So biodiesel was kind of an obvious path for us. We started looking at, well, you got to make it out of something. What are we going to make it out of? The easy thing we thought was use cooking oil, animal fats, that type of thing, which is kind of what everybody thinks about when they think about biodiesel. Unfortunately, we weren't the first to think about it, so there wasn't supply that we could readily get at a price that we could make it work, and that's what led us to soybeans and soy oil. Started doing some research in the region, and the beauty part was over 10 million bushels of soybeans grown, and I don't know, probably a 10 or 12 county radius of where Somerset is. So that led us to purchasing soybeans, crushing soybeans, extracting the oil to make the biodiesel. One of our big concerns early on was the soy oil is about 10, 12% of the yield when you crush a soybean. So the bulk of the yield was a product that we were not familiar with, the soy meal and the hulls. We had never made that. We had never sold that. Started doing research on that and again discovered the very big need for the poultry industry in our region. So we had some conversations and found that there were plenty of markets for the meal right here in Kentucky. So that really kind of pushed us over the edge. That's when we approved the project and we really jumped in, 18 months ago. So this has been a pretty quick turnaround for a project of this magnitude. So when it's all said and done, we've got about a $33 million project investment in the facility. We'll have roughly 36 full-time employees, good high-paying jobs for the region. We'll be processing 3.8 million bushels of soybeans a year when we get to our max capacity. We've actually built the plant with expansion in mind. We're not going to start out at that level, but we figure within the first 12 to 18 months, we'll start another phase of the project, add another extruder to the process, add more storage for beans, and continue to grow what we're doing. The yields, 90,000 short tons of soy meal, which equates to 180 million pounds of soy meal. The soy hulls, all that will go into animal feeds. And again, the beauty part of this is we're an end user, so we'll be purchasing soybeans not to remarket the bean, but to actually process them. So we're going to be a manufacturing facility. All this will stay local. We'll be buying local beans. We'll be crushing. We'll be selling back into the markets in Kentucky. So literally, it's all for the region, really. There's no doubt that at some point we could exceed what the region can handle, but for the most part, I think this will be a Kentucky product and end up back in Kentucky markets. And then on with the soy oil, we'll be producing nearly 5 million gallons of biodiesel a year. Big push for that, particularly in our region, is right now I can't think of a gas station I go to down in that area that actually offers any bio blends. You'll see it up this way, Frankfort, Louisville, Lexington. But anybody that's supplied out of Knoxville, their fuel, they don't do any blending down there that I'm aware of. So we'll actually be introducing biodiesel blends for the first time in the region. So another very exciting part of this project, bringing additional energy to the region. We hope to, as that moves forward, expand that as well. So a few slides of what, this is what the facility looked like just a few years ago. Let's see if I can, here we go. So this was is our main office. Historically, this was a warehouse where we stored all our parts and pieces for the oil refinery. And then across the way here, this is a truck garage where we maintained our fleet of trucks when we were purchasing crude oil and then delivering out road fuels. So that's what it looked like. Now with the new project, we've still got, where's my mouse? Still got our main office. This warehouse has been completely converted into a biodiesel plant. All the equipment's housed within that building. The soy oil will get pumped from the other side. Around back here, we've got our tank farm. You can see those tanks. I've lost my cursor again. Anyway, tanks in the back, all that's new, all that's been done here in the last 12 months. Then sliding across, our original plan was to modify that truck garage and put the soy crush plant inside it. Unfortunately, it just wasn't possible. So we had to tear that part of the building down. We've built a brand new structure. The front half is our offices. The grain bins are up. This was probably 3-4 weeks ago. Since then, the rest of the elevator's been going in. We ran into a couple of snags, supply chain issues, all of the same thing. Anybody that's tried to build anything here recently. We've got a switch gear that was our primary switch gear, which is the big electrical component for the crush plant. It was due in, I believe, about 6 weeks ago. And as of right now, I don't know that we have a definitive date. We've got what we're hoping for, but it got us behind, and then just some construction delays. But we're pushing forward. Our original goal was to be receiving beans by now. We've had to push that back. Right now, we believe it's going to be possible first part of December to actually start receiving some soybeans. The crush plant, again, assuming that switchgear makes it here, we hope to get it up and running 1st of January. The biodiesel plant, we're going to start it up by purchasing soy oil on the market. So we hope to get it up and running here probably in the next 20 or 30 days. All the staff's hired, trained. The equipment is 99% in place. We're doing final walk downs. So we're really excited to get that part going. And just a couple of little props. We've got the soybean, which is where we're going to start. And believe it or not, it ends up as biodiesel. And that's a little sample. This is our first batch we made on the bench top using the exact same process that we'll use out in the plant. We needed to do that so we could get it off, get it tested. The results were fantastic. Specs are really, I think, exceeding what we were hoping for. So we're extremely excited about the product that we're going to be putting out. The final piece of this project, so we've made the biodiesel. Now we need to get it into the market. We've got a fuel terminal where we'll be bringing traditional diesel fuel, petroleum diesel fuel up from Knoxville. We've got about 400,000 gallons of storage. and then we'll remarket and blend the biodiesel with the petroleum diesel, remarket it across the region. So we literally bring the thing full circle, buying local beans, crushing them, selling the meal and the hulls into the regional livestock feed market, making biodiesel, and then redistributing that same biodiesel back to the same region. So very exciting project. We can't wait to hit the start button and get going. It's kind of like a sports team. Feel like we've been practicing now for 2 or 3 years. We're ready to get in the game. Along the way, just part of our investment in Somerset and in the region. About 1.5 years ago, we got the opportunity to purchase Warner Fertilizer. So again, a commitment to agriculture, another piece of the puzzle. Growers need fertilizer to grow their crops. We'll be buying the same crop back into our plant and then remarketing the feed and the biodiesel back to the same group of folks. So it's pretty cool to see the whole circle that we'll be covering. So, and then on top of that, we've got convenience stores that we've been developing down in that region under the label Midland Farms. We've got one under that banner and 2 more under development. So big, huge investment overall into the region by Demetrius. He, if you ever get an opportunity to meet him, and you can probably tell from his name, he's not from here, but he came here after buying the refinery, fell in love with Kentucky, with the area, with the people. He has since moved here. This is his permanent home out in Nancy. So a big commitment to Somerset, Pulaski County, and the whole region. There are so many people that have helped us through this process, but I want to kind of single out a handful of folks. Congressman Hal Rogers has been very supportive of our efforts. Commissioner Dr. Ryan Quarles, from the very beginning, we reached out. He came down and we took him through the project. He's just been a big champion of what we're doing. Kentucky Ag Department, the Kentucky Agriculture Development Board, Brian Lacefield, Bill McCloskey, and all their team, huge help in getting us some funding early on. Both from a grant perspective as well as guaranteed loan. But they've just been a huge help and very supportive. We've actually got them coming down on the 17th of November after their annual board meeting to get a look at everything. Senator Rick Girdler, Representatives Kenny Upchurch and David Mead, our Mayor Alan Keck, just everybody that is in local and state government have been extremely supportive of our efforts, and we're really thankful for that. And lastly, Kentucky Farm Bureau, Mr. Haney with that organization, obviously from close by in Nancy, but they have been super supportive right out of the gate. So thanks to all those folks. We couldn't have done it without all that support and encouragement. Really, it's been a blessing. Lastly, one thing I'd like to kind of mention is that with the push for sustainable fuels across the country, we've got a project here right at home where we're producing renewable, sustainable energy. And we'd hope that the General Assembly would look at purchasing statutes for a preference towards alternative fuels. We think it would be very helpful to continue this growth and push across the state. With that, that's flip back, Matt. I'm sorry I missed something. The last thanks. These county extension agencies across our region there were a handful right out of the gate in particular that really connected us to growers, gave us the opportunity to get in front of growers and sit down and have one-on-one conversations to understand that we truly did have the support of the grower, because without that, we've got no project. And these folks were just hugely helpful. They got us into every one of these county meetings over the course of about 3 months. I think we hit probably 30 or 40 county meetings. Every one of them were supportive, maybe not financially, but through letters and encouragement and really outreach to their farm base. The ones that are up here all contributed some of their KDF money to the project. So it was, again, just a great thanks to all those folks. They do a great job, and they were extremely helpful to us. So with that, I'll shut up, and if anybody's got any questions or comments or whatever, we'd be happy to take them.
Thank you. Good presentation. We do have some members who have comments or questions, so we'll start with Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Morris, appreciate you being here today. I always like a project that's got a win-win-win to it. Now, it's been a few years since I trucked a load of soybeans to market. But as someone who's been in that business, it's always important to have a viable market in close proximity to your farm. So this is a great investment for that area. It'll be a great opportunity. And I hope you'll even offer the soybean farmers a little premium who are close by. Now, also, we've got we have a viable livestock industry in Kentucky. You're providing additional feed supply. So this is just a great project. It's always a win when we have economic investment in our communities in Kentucky, particularly in southeastern Kentucky, providing jobs. And I think it's a win that we're providing an alternative fuel supply. We understand the importance of energy even more now than ever. And that leads me to a question. As I was getting on I-64 at Waddy this morning, I was looking at the prices at the pumps. It used to be that diesel fuel was less than the cost of gasoline. Could you explain? Could you maybe if you have the expertise, could you kind of share why are we seeing such a variation between gasoline and diesel prices now?
Well, there's a lot of things, and as I've kidded with people about myself, I knew nothing about fuel until I met Demetrius about 10 years ago now, and he brought me down to the refinery. I was just like you, always thought, well, diesel fuel's a byproduct. It's supposed to be cheaper than gasoline. Well, when you start looking at the landscape and how it's changed over the years, you've got more and more vehicles using diesel fuel. The push to have clean diesel, I think, has opened up. You got more automobiles, trucks, heavy equipment, and then there's a drag on diesel fuel from the heating market. And I think what we're seeing right now, and again, I'm not an expert, but just my own look at the landscape, and with Europe in dire need of fuel for heating homes, I think there's a lot of diesel fuel that's getting pushed to various markets that otherwise would be available for transportation. The stockpiles are down. The inventories, you continuously see inventories for this time of year lower than normal. And I think that's a lot of what's driving the prices, the price disparity, really, between gas and diesel. I think it, as usual, with economics, it's a supply and demand function that I think is driving the big difference.
Mr. Chair, can I have a quick follow-up, please?
Yes.
Most people are familiar with ethanol. They're familiar with the term E85, and we know there are limitations on the type of engines, the models. Could you share a little bit about how this product would be blended percentages, and are there limitations on which vehicles it needs to go in?
Sure. So the biodiesel board, I think they've recently changed their name. They have done an incredible amount of work in this area over the last, 10 years or so with studies. All of your major manufacturers, engine manufacturers of diesel engines, they'll say B20, so a 20% blend. And we always thought it was a warranty issue, but it's really not a warranty issue. So 20%, I think, is achievable in just about any diesel engine. They recently did a study. They took, Matt, you remember how many? Had 10 or 12 tractors that they put under normal operating conditions over, I don't know.
6 months.
Yes, during the winter, and they were running, I believe, 100% blend, or not a blend, but 100% biodiesel. Fantastic results. So right out of the gate, a B5, so a 5% blend is what you'll see around here. You might see it on a pump. It'll say may contain up to 5% biodiesel. No different than on a gasoline pump. You'll see it's may contain up to 10% ethanol. No different. So 5%, and that's easy. Our goal is to push as much of the market towards a 20% blend because I think it is easily achievable. I know our goal with our own equipment is we want to push that to a B50 blend. We've got our own trucks and tractors and everything across not only Continental but Warner Fertilizer, and we're gonna try to push that to a B50 pretty quickly. One of the black marks that I think biodiesel got early on, it's a cleaner, and so you put a higher blend, a 20% blend or 30, 40, 50% blend in an existing diesel tank that you've had on the farm for 20 years, it gets in there and literally cleans everything in the tank. Well, where does that end up? It ends up in your tractor or your truck. People always said, oh, it just plugs everything. Well, it really wasn't the fuel that was plugging. It was all the dirt that was breaking free and plugging it. So one of the things we'll do as we try to get customers to go to that higher blend is we're going to offer a cleaning. We'll come out, we can sell you a new tank, which that'd be the ideal, but we can come out and clean your tank. So we run basically what fuel you've got in the tank through a filtration process, get as much of the sediment and all that stuff out as we can, and then just be ready to help folks change filters on their equipment several times. But that is our goal, is to push that blend as close to B20 as we can.
Thank you, Chairman Hornback.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Steve, thank you all for being here today. Known you a long time. You've always done a good job and everything, but I can't tell you how much we appreciate your investment in the state, and especially in the ag sector of the state and what that'll do. Because, like I told you earlier before the meeting, although this is located in Somerset, it makes a difference to farmers all over the state because of having more competition for the products that we raise and sell. And the one thing that you just talked about, that's the one thing farmers have to understand and the public has to understand is how much cleaner this product is than traditional diesel fuel, and the issues they are going to have when you first start using that. But once you get over those issues, because I've used it before, once you get over those issues, it's a lot better product. It's a renewable product. So it is something I'm glad you all are pushing, that we need to push and do everything we can for, but I appreciate your all's investment in that. So you're going to start purchasing soybeans in another month or so, you think?
Yes, sir. That's the goal. Like I say, the original goal, we actually contracted with some growers, and the original goal was to start up first part of October receiving beans. We've just had to shove that back a little bit. But yeah, we will be putting beans in those bins in the next 45 days anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for your investment. Thank you for what you're doing for here in the state of Kentucky. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Representative Thomas.
Appreciate you being here. A few years ago, we got the distinct pleasure to go visit Owensboro Grain. So when you're showing some of these comparisons, it's amazing what all will come out of a soybean. I mean, just the different byproducts, all the way down to the finest amounts. So we're really proud of y'all, what you're doing, and thanks too. Being in the trucking business, some of our trucks run this DEF. If you ran full biodiesel, would that actually eliminate that need for DEF, do you think? Or how's that work? Do we still have to fill the DEF tanks while we're running blended? I'm sure we will at that point.
What I read, and I haven't read the study to real detailed levels, but what it appears is that you have fewer regeneration, so you're not using as much. That whole system still has to operate as it does, even with the higher bio blends, from what I understand. But it cuts down on those regenerations, and it cuts down on your usage of the DEF.
Gotcha.
And again, the biodiesel board, what you remember what they've changed their name to?
It's like Clean Fuels America or something.
Fantastic website, and they have got just all kinds of great information on biodiesel, what its benefits are. I would encourage everybody to go look at that site, and you'll get quite an education on biodiesel.
Mr. Chairman, one more.
Sure.
We have Hopkinsville Elevator and ethanol plant down in Christian County, and just does phenomenal. It's amazing. They're doing the same thing. They're getting so much out of a kernel of corn,
Right.
And fascinating. But for a gallon of diesel, let's just say right now you could find it at $5. What would be the comparison to maybe a blended fuel? Would it be $5 1/4, or would it be actually $4.75? Do you see the blended fuels costing a little bit more, or is it pretty comparable?
It'll either be comparable, or, our hope is that we can be efficient enough in our production that we could actually show a differential down on the blended product.
All right.
I mean, that's the goal.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Representative Cole Carney.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for presenting this information and this opportunity this morning. I had a question about supply. Are you anticipating or planning on growth in the amount of supply that you're going to need, or are you able to operate within the existing?
So what we're starting up with, we've got 2 extruders, so 2 presses to run the plant. We've got about 300,000 bushels of storage, of bean storage. Our goal, we've designed the plant, the whole facility, our elevator. We can push our storage as high as 3 million bushels. And then we've already got the pad, the location, and everything for a 3rd extruder. So our goal over the next 18 months to 3 years would be to have, grow our storage capacity closer to 3 million bushels, and then increase our production with that additional extruder. So yes, we want to grow.
And in terms of the actual soybean growth from the farmers, are you expecting them to grow more?
Well, what we seem to continually see is more and more farms converting from various activities into grain production. Right now, like I said earlier, there's roughly 10 million bushels grown in a 7, 8, 9 county radius of Somerset. And I mean, I think that's probably exploded over the last 5 to 10 years. At some point, there's only so much tillable land that we can produce row crops on in the region. But at this point, I don't see why it certainly wouldn't back up, and it wouldn't surprise me to continue to see a slight increase year over year.
Senator Wise.
Mr. Chairman, thank you all for the presentation. Thanks for the investment in the region, the Commonwealth. Has there been any talks or any partnerships with the high schools there with agriculture education, FFA programs, anything like that? I know that region there, you've got some really good technology centers and some things that are happening right now with education. I didn't know on the ag side with education, if this is something that you're looking to do and to help some of those students as they're getting out of high school, going to the workforce, of how this can relate to that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've got a pretty full plate at this point. I can't point to anything specific we've done so far, but to continue to staff the facility, if we want to continue to grow, obviously working with the local schools, we will absolutely reach out. I mean, we always did that with the refinery, the oil refinery. We worked a lot with the community college to try to develop programs that would be a good feeder for what we were doing with the refinery. So we go down those roads quite often.
Representative Flood.
Thank you, Chairman. I wanted to thank you for your comments at the very end. I felt that you called for an appropriate declaration of support by the entire legislature for sustainable fuels and energies moving forward. And I think it is time for us to be in a both-and mode to understand our past commitments to coal in the state, but also to recognize that clearly we're headed in a very strong direction that holds both. And it's a good moment to name it because, and perhaps this is one of the better committees for that request to come out of, because this is a committee that has a long history of being able to hold the larger picture moving us forward. So I'm hopeful that you called on the legislature to do that. I will hope that my colleagues would listen to that. I personally am wrapping up my service after 14 years, but was greatly heartened by that call to action at the end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Couple of questions for me or comments. Before I forget it, the tour coming up on November 17th, do you want to talk about that a little bit? And I understand the Interim Joint Ag Committee members are invited to come to that tour.
Yes, sir. So the KADF board, as well as the Ag Development Board,
Yes.
and the finance side of
Yes,
that.
that's
They're
right.
having a joint annual meeting at the center there in Somerset, November 17th. That first day, they will be at our facility again with their financial support they've given us. They're coming out with the whole group to tour the facility and see what we've done so far. And absolutely anybody on this committee that would like to join that would be more than welcome. It's not going to be super pretty. I mean, there's still a lot of construction, still a lot of site work going on. There's not going to be a lot of nice sod and pavement and all that, but we'd love to have anybody that would like to come down and check it out.
Thank you for that. I noticed we do have some committee meetings in Frankfurt that day, but your tour is first thing in the morning.
Yes, sir. I
8:45.
believe it was at
8:45. There's an
Yeah.
information sheet in the folder.
Okay.
And
Good.
Notice the comment in there about closed-toed shoes required. So for the tour.
And November 17th, I'd imagine everybody'd want to have closed-toed shoes anyway. Might be a little chilly.
Probably, maybe insulated cover.
Yeah.
Another question, is there an ask for the legislature, or is that going to come later? What do you need from the legislature, or is there a need from our side?
Honestly, just the continued support of our efforts. There's not a specific ask at this point.
Okay.
Again, looking at purchasing statutes and that type of thing can always be beneficial. But again, we just appreciate that we've got the backing and the support of everybody in the legislature.
Sure, we'll be glad to meet with you and your lobbyists on those purchasing statutes if there's some tweaking that needs done there. Just curious for my own information, and maybe others too. Back in the summer, there was estimates or predictions that there would be a shortage of diesel fuel going into the fall, which concerned me for fall harvest. Are you aware of that, or did that come about? I haven't seen it there. Haven't run into that.
What we are experiencing, just because we've already started our fuel distribution piece of our business. There are times when the supply has been extremely tight on the diesel side. So far, we've kept all our customers wet. We haven't had an issue where we couldn't get fuel to somebody. I do believe this winter, as we get deeper into it, I think just because of the demand for heating homes, particularly in the Northeast, I think it could get tighter. But I mean, just reading stockpiles and those levels, all I do is I just continue to see those drop. So I think it's going to get tighter before it gets looser. Let's put it that way.
I was just curious if I needed to keep my diesel tank topped off. And
it can't hurt. Just hopefully you buy it at the right time. You don't do it like me where I filled mine up at the peak. And I'll probably, the next time I need to fill it up, it'll be back at the peak. But
thank you. Chairman Hornback has a follow-up question.
Just to follow up to your comment, diesel is short in our area. I mean, it's tough to get. You have to sort of plan around to get it. Is your all's diesel coming in that you blend? Is it coming in by water, by rail, by truck? How is it getting shipped in? Because the Mississippi River is the main problem right now.
Yeah.
And just trying to get fuel up from the Gulf, crude up from the Gulf up here to refineries is almost impossible to do right now.
Same problem with the grain going out.
Yes.
It's been fertilizer coming in. No, all of our petroleum products will be trucked predominantly from Knoxville. That is the terminal that's closest to us. All that facility is fed by the pipeline. It's at the tail end of the Colonial, so it'll be our primary source. Not to say that there won't be times we're in Lexington or Nashville, maybe even Louisville, but predominantly it's coming out of Knoxville and we're trucking it up.
And just so that members recognize that Senator Givens, when next year in the legislature or anything, if they're talking about and they have been talking about diverting water from the Mississippi River out to the drier regions in the West, that doesn't need to be done because right now barge traffic is greatly inhibited, whether it be exporting, importing stuff up here or whatever, because the river levels are so low anyway.
Thank you for your participation. Just for the record, I'd let your guest introduce himself. Matt York, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Go ahead, and I'll let it be in your voice.
I'm Matt York. I work with Steve at Hemisphere Limited. I've been involved in this project since the beginning, and we're excited to be here with you guys today.
Thank you. I'll try to make your tour.
Fantastic. Appreciate it.
Good to have you guys.
Thank you all a lot.
We're going to move over and talk about poultry now, and I noticed Jamie perked up a little bit when you were talking about all that soybean meal right here close to his chicken houses. Yeah, our soybean meal in the western of the state comes across the river from Cairo, Illinois. So,
Right.
Yeah. No stranger to any of us, Jamie Guffey with the Poultry Federation, Executive Director. But Jamie, I'll let you introduce yourself in the mic so it goes on the record in your voice.
Well, thank you all for letting me. Is that on?
Is the green light on?
How about now?
Yeah.
Jamie Guffey, Executive Director of the Kentucky Poultry Federation. Chairman and committee, thank you for letting me come speak about poultry. It's one of the things that I enjoy doing from time to time, and as part of our mission is to promote and educate about the poultry industry in the state of Kentucky. just part of the things we do. I will have a couple of asks or needs at the end. So, I mean, I was realizing that. But anytime we get soybeans close, especially for my family farm in Clinton County or Byrdstown, Tennessee, just a supplier for that, that's always good. So those guys did a great presentation. But the poultry industry's had some challenges in the past year. We'll talk about them as we go through. But after the numbers came out as far as the commodities go, we became the second commodity in the state of Kentucky after a long run at being first. We gave that championship belt to corn. So hopefully we'll have a rematch in the next couple of years, be able to take that back, be the number one commodity in the state. We are still a $1.2 billion industry, and we're currently seventh in the nation as far as meat production goes in the U.S., behind Texas. So, the size of Texas is pretty large, so it's going to be pretty difficult for us to get past seventh, but we're going to try. Tell you a little bit about the poultry industry. We are a nonprofit organization. So our main mission is promotion and education about poultry and poultry products in the state of Kentucky. However, we do some regulatory duties. We subcontract the USDA to make sure we can ship products across state line and also be able to export those products. So our duties are a little bit different. One of our main goals through some checkoff dollars is some free demonstrations in classrooms. We do cooking demonstrations mainly in FCCLA classrooms. We do some at 4-H level and also some at the ag classes. But we try to do a free demonstration for eggs, whether it's crepes, omelets, or eggs with legs, which is basically deviled eggs in those classrooms. We're finally getting back in the classroom, so we're glad to be back in after COVID shut us down for a couple of years. So we're ready to do that. Like I said earlier, we do NPIP for the National Poultry Improvement Plan for the state of Kentucky. We also work with farmers and consumers, basically to educate them about those products as well. And to give you a simple idea of what poultry looks like in the state of Kentucky, if you ever look at a map of Kentucky, you get your ruler out, and like from Somerset, put a ruler on Somerset and E-Town. Most of the poultry in the state of Kentucky is raised to the west of that. I'd say over 90% of that is raised there. So that kind of gives you an idea of where the poultry is at, and it's there mainly because of the corn. So as Kentucky's poultry industry grows, so does corn and soybeans and everything else, because we use those commodities to keep us going. And I've been in this position about 10 years, and all I can say in those 10 years is change. Just like everything else, everything always changes. Since I've taken over this position, we've put more birds outside. We've added more labels to our products, whether that's organic, access to pasture. You name it, we're putting labels on things because that's what the consumers want right now. We've got not only egg birds that are outside on the organic pastures, we've also got meat birds now. So we're selling things to Whole Foods and Chipotle out of Cromwell, Kentucky, that we hadn't done in the past, just because we're able to meet those standards that they're requiring. We've got more females making day-to-day decisions and planning in the state of Kentucky as far as poultry goes than we ever have before. And I still believe that the best way to get the next generation back to the farm is poultry, because it provides a steady income for that younger generation to be able to make an impact on that farm. So those are some of the things that we're looking at as far as poultry. And as a reminder, as far as like our partners, we've always had, the Cal-Maine Foods, as far as the table eggs go. We've got the Tysons, the Purdue, we got the Pilgrims. But here lately, like I was talking about the access to pasture table egg birds, we've got the Handsome Brook, we've got Egg Innovation, and we've got a new company that's coming to Kentucky that's looking to expand to about 100 houses in Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri, and Arkansas area, Vital Farms. And we've also got CWT, which is a chick they basically growing chicks. They're hatching eggs to sell to Canada and to Jamaica and a lot of the islands, Central America, for genetic stock. They're looking at coming to the corridor of I-24, whether that's Clarksville or Hopkinsville. So they're kind of looking in that area. We're trying, regardless of where they end up, we think we'll get a few farms from them as well. So we're looking to continue to expand and growth. But one thing I'll remind you with these international companies that we work with, our product is local. You can go, whether you're going to the drive-thru today or you're stopping at the grocery store on the way home buying a rotisserie chicken, a lot of those products we buy in Kentucky are from Kentucky. Pilgrims in Mayfield, pretty close to where I'm living now, picked up a contract for Chick-fil-A. They were set to do an expansion prior to the tornado, and I'll talk about that in a minute, to increase by about 70 houses to provide more of the grilled, skinless, boneless nuggets there at Chick-fil-A. Well, that went to Texas because they're not able to provide that meat right now. But also the McGrill. When I worked for Keystone Foods out of Albany, Kentucky, the McGrill was, if you bought that on this side of the Mississippi River, that came from Kentucky growers. That plant was also the #1 supplier during the mid-2000s for Subway chicken. If you bought Subway chicken, that came from Albany, Kentucky. That was just one of the things you got to remember when you're doing this, you're buying local. But also, I mentioned earlier, Chick-fil-A and also Chipotle. We're raising product now that meets those standards, whether it's Gap 1, Gap 2. One of our meat companies are looking at going Gap 3 through Whole Foods. The only thing keeping them from doing that is an organic feed mill. And that has to be a standalone feed mill, so that's a huge impact as far as that goes. But whether you're, like I said, whether you're buying boar's head meat for your sandwich meat for turkeys, we're growing that in Kentucky. Our turkey population is not the Thanksgiving Day bird or the Christmas bird. It's a lunch meat that's a premium product through boar's head. So we're there for you every day at the grocery store, at the fast food. Like I said, I think growth's out there, even though we've backed off because production has been down, and we have had the storm that knocked out a lot of our production in the western part of the state. But some of the challenges our growers are looking at as far as they're looking to expand, I got some numbers from some lenders that I was talking to about early 2020. The cost per square foot to build a poultry house was $15.74 per square foot. In July of 22, that same footprint of house was costing $20.57 per square foot. That's a $5 increase in 2 years per square foot to build a poultry house. That put a lot of the poultry houses out of being able to expand because they will not cash flow at that point until we can get the products down, and then as building supplies coming down, interest rates are coming up, so that cost is not changing. It's just the inputs are realigning themselves. So we're kind of looking at that. But talking about expansion, Wingstop and a couple of the other larger companies are looking to build their own standalone facilities. Kentucky is in that picture, and I think one of the things holding us back is labor. That's one of the things, anything we can do in the state of Kentucky to get skilled labor or labor in general will help. And I think if we get Wingstop or one of the other companies that are looking to come to Kentucky, that'll be in the E-Town or the Hopkinsville area. That's just where the labor's at. Possibly Paducah, but we have that river issue as far as not bringing people across the river to be able to work. Hanson Brook is one of the egg companies I talked about earlier. They're looking at building a hard-cooked egg facility, but that's going to go in Tennessee. However, we may be able to get some farmers raising eggs for them to be able to ship them down outside of Nashville. So we may have lost the hands-on facility, the brick-and-mortar facility, but we may get some farmers that will be able to continue to grow for them. So continuing, looking at the tornado and the impact, like I said, last year has been definitely a challenge. We lost about 26 houses for the storm on December 10th. We had thousands of chicken houses across the state from all the way from Fulton County to Taylor County that was running on generator power for days. It had a huge impact on us. Pilgrims lost a feed mill and 2 hatcheries. Now, like I was talking about earlier, a lot of these companies are international competitors. When they had a need, those other companies stepped up and started hatching eggs for them, because they were going to go from almost 2 million hatching eggs a week to nothing. So the Tysons and other companies stepped up and said, hey, we'll hatch your eggs. They were able to get one of the hatcheries back up and running this summer, and they're running about just under half of what they were running in the past, because there was 2 hatcheries, there's one there, but they're bringing in hatching eggs from Texas and other places that our Kentucky growers are actually having to truck those products down to Texas to be hatched, bring those chicks back to be able to place in Kentucky. So we're still working, we're doing things we can do, but the storm definitely made us realize that there's more issues out there than we knew. And then after we thought we were recovering from the storms, February happened. First time in history in the state of Kentucky, high-path avian influenza was detected in the state of Kentucky. That locked everything down. International trade stopped, our products stopped. Like I said, it was definitely a wake-up call for us. We'd had low path in the past, and we was able to handle that, but high path is directly regulated by USDA. After we got through that, September comes, and Tennessee realizes they had high path again in a backyard flock, and then October we've had 2 announcements in Kentucky as far as high path avian influenza. So that's still out there. Biosecurity is a key. Anything we can do to improve our growers' biosecurity, making them aware of the situation, is definitely something we need to look at. I'll talk about the state vet's office and how well they done in a minute, because that's another one of the asks that I have. But during the storms and during the recent floods we've had, our poultry companies really stepped up. Tyson, Purdue, Pilgrims, Cal-Maine, everybody stepped up, donate product, food, people to cook. We set up several cooking stations across the state. Cal-Maine was making calls saying, hey, we've got eggs, we can deliver them. And they're like, we don't have power. We have no place to put those eggs. We would love to have a truck of eggs. We can't do anything with it. And they said, okay, we can give you a refrigerator truck for 2 weeks. Will that work? I'm like, sure, because that way they can refrigerate other products so they get donated. It's a fresh product. So, as far as sending trucks to Mayfield, to Bowling Green, and other places, we really definitely stepped up with that. And also on the floods, donating money, but also the product to keep people going. That's just kind of what we do. In addition, like I said, we're hatching eggs for the competitors are hatching eggs for each other. Now, there was some cost involved with that, but it was one of those things where you stepped up and helped. It reminded me a lot of our bourbon industry. Like after a fire, somebody says, bring your yeast over and bring your recipe over and we'll make some product for you. It's just Kentucky works together, and I'm so proud to be a Kentuckian and be able to realize what we do together. But like I said, our needs, I'm asked quite a bit, what will it take for us to buy more corn, buy more soybeans, raise some more chicks, raise some more birds? What will that take? Labor. If we don't have the labor, we're not going to be able to expand. We're not going to be able to maintain what we've got. So I think that's the number one thing. But in addition to that, our state vet's office done an amazing job during the tornadoes. They did an amazing job during the avian influenza outbreaks and during the floods. And then now they're working in the backyard flocks now to try to take care of that. The way the outbreak works, as far as our integrators take care of the commercial birds. We did all the testing, we set up all the labs, but the state's responsible for all the regulatory duties of that with USDA. They're also responsible for finding all the backyard flocks that nobody knows where they're at, whose neighbors got them, everything else. So they had employees for the state that were working over 30 days straight. Dr. Flynn at the time didn't have an assistant state vet. We actually hired one in March, and he's resigned as of last month, so she's without a deputy state vet again. We have two vets on staff in the state of Kentucky. We've lost several field staff here recently. One of them during the outbreak in March went home on a Friday, came back on a Monday in a USDA outfit. So we're losing employees to better jobs, better benefits. But I see a need as far as maintaining our Kentucky State Veterinarian's office. I think they need more veterinarians. I think they need more field staff. I think they need emergency responders. Their jobs are regulatory, but they also have duties that require response when disease outbreak or disaster outbreaks, as they found out in the floods, where they had to take care of the dogs and cats, which is not on the ag side. That's one of the things I think is imperative that the state of Kentucky recognizes, that without a strong state vet's office, that puts our industries in peril. And I'll give this example. If this was a multi-species, instead of AI, say it was a multi-species issue that happened in Taylor, Russell, Logan, Clinton, Cumberland area, who knows where all the cows are at? Who knows where all the sheep and goats are at? Can you see them from the road? That would be the state vet's responsibility and local contracted veterinarians to find that. And the issue with vets is not just the state vet's office. We are in dire need of large animal vets, food animal veterinarians in the state of Kentucky. So that anything that could be done from you all would be greatly appreciated to do that. And then one more thing I'll bring to your attention. I think we're going to have some legislation come forward this session about a livestock and food building that we're working with all commodity groups to try to build at the University of Kentucky Woodford Farm. This would be a great operation for us to be able to promote our industry. I'm excited about the commercial kitchens that's in the plans, because we can film some videos to be able to use social media, but also train the butchers, also trains the local chefs, because I'll go talk to the cooking schools every now and then, whether it's Sullivan in Louisville or some other places, and they're all about the labels. But they know what the labels are, they don't understand what they mean. That's an opportunity for us to educate the butchers and the chefs on exactly what they're purchasing. And that's all that I have. But I think, as far as I brought a lot to you and threw a lot at you, I'll highlight some of the missed things we've had here recently, as far as like the Costco facility that was built in Kansas. Kentucky was one of the last three that was on that facility. We missed that one. Tyson decided to build a plant in Humboldt, Tennessee, which I think they're regretting. They didn't come to Kentucky after the issues they're having there. We actually missed a company that does a flu vaccine that has the birds, lays the eggs, and creates the flu vaccine that's going to Tennessee. We missed that one. And like I said, Wingstop's looking now. I'd hate to miss that opportunity to have another integrator come into the state that's going to raise about 1.2 million birds a week for operation. But I think, the opportunity is there for us to come back and be Kentucky's #1 agricultural commodity again. It may take a couple years. It may take Pilgrims getting their hatcheries back up and running, a couple expansions. We've got 3 facilities that want to expand now, but as of right now, the product won't cash flow with interest rates and the high cost of equipment. I think that'll flush itself out. Sometime next year, we'll come up with some ideas to be able to make that more profitable. The organic side, it's going to continue to grow. It is a niche market, but it's one of those things that's going to grow. And the increase of birds being raised outside with our environment and the way our Kentucky ecosystem works, I think we'll be a target for that, because as far as eggs go, we are, from all that we can tell through USDA, third in the nation on access to pasture table egg birds. And I think that's only going to grow because of our climate and our farmers and our availability to that, what they need for that. But Chairman, that's what I have as far as our presentation, and any questions I'll be willing to answer if I can.
Thank you. Very informative. We do have some members with questions or comments. We'll start with Senator Webb.
Thank you. Recently, Representative Pratt and I got to go to Georgia, to where poultry's, number one, and spend time with Commissioner Black and former U.S. Secretary Sonny Perdue, and see Georgia Tech's innovations for automation, because what you've cited with labor shortages, flu response and potential, and all those things, it's a universal problem. And it's amazing some of the things that they're coming up with for in-house automation, and then virtual monitoring and all these things. But, that's several years away. And we talked a lot about what Senator Wise alluded to on targeting or incentivizing our educational groups that we have, and then how to expand those, not look outside of 4-H and FFA, to try to, like you stated, with education opportunities by bringing people in to see the poultry side of things and the potential there, in spite of the costs, which again are universal issues. But I think we need to do those things, and I know that your group is really good at that. But I think we as a General Assembly need to continue to support those initiatives, because the bird flu thing is very real and can be very devastating really quick. And of course, this committee's always supported large animal veterinarians overall, but all the points you made, again, it's not just Kentucky with veterinary services. So we're going to be competing not only within ourselves, but with other states. And I think our pay scale, we need to look at that for our state veterinarians and their ability to respond, particularly in the poultry industry, because devastation can occur very rapidly. So, you're preaching to the choir somewhat, but I think we've got to maintain these issues in the forefront, because the poultry industry is important to Kentucky, and we want to see it expand. But and hope is on the way, but it's not going to be in a timely manner. But thank you all.
That was a very, very good point. And like you said, as far as compensation, Dr. Flynn was telling me she had one application for the deputy state vet position that was not qualified because she'd only been out of school for 2 years. But they said, we can offer you a vet job. And they said, well, my home state of Ohio did, and it was $20,000 more starting.
Thank you for that information. Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jamie, I always appreciate you being here, updating us on this great industry we have here in Kentucky. You mentioned labor. We've got a workforce issue all across the state, all across this nation. And quite frankly, as we look at public policy, I've heard the comparisons in the population increase in Tennessee and Kentucky over the last 30, 40 years. They're just, people are moving to Tennessee and other states. We've got to have more people moving to Kentucky. So we're going to continue to provide policy and economic climate to make that happen. You talked about the cost of building houses, being in the real estate industry. We all know the impacts of inflation. The actions of the Federal Reserve, interest rates has got to also be a big issue driving this cost. We got to keep that in mind. I've been reading recently about the avian flu situation. I believe Europe has destroyed something like 50 million birds, over 47 million in the United States. And we're well aware that As you mentioned, the more outdoor flocks we have, the more potential for that we're going to have, because we do not have controlled situations from those migratory birds. What is your thoughts on the retail price of poultry products? What's the impact of all these factors on that, and where could we see it go to?
Well, that's a very good question. I can only speak on like cost and demand type things, but as far as you talk about Europe, this disease did come from Europe. As far as the migratory bird patterns, we're seeing as the hunting seasons open, more and more of the hunter harvested birds testing positive for AI. So we know it's in the environment. It's there. It's at a risk at all times. But if we don't have the supply, the demand's still there. The cost is going to go up. But the issue may be that if one of our Kentucky farmers have it, that's 6 months without income. There'll be some compensation for cleaning, some compensation for that flock, the USDA. The company may step up and help as well. Several of them will, especially if they have to hold out. But if it's a large outbreak, how long can they afford to do that? I think it'll have a direct effect on that. And our best bet is biosecurity. Our farmers are trained. Our company employees are trained. Our job is to keep that away. The best thing we can do is, as basketball season starts to open up, we've had big blue madness, is to do a full court press. That's the only thing we can do as far as keep that product out of here. Because once it's in, then it's out of our hands to control it.
Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jamie, for being here. I always enjoy your presentations. I appreciate you bringing up about the protein handling and the butchers and everything, the training facility that's really needed to help all livestock that's produced here in Kentucky, so I appreciate that. You talked about the safety aspect. Of course, that's number one. And then training those folks, touching on Representative Tipton's question, of training them to cut in the certain ways that the consumer demands. So I certainly appreciate you bringing that up. We've also had a good discussion on avian influenza this morning. If I recall correctly, there was a case identified in Fayette County, I think within the last 2 weeks. Can you touch on that? I think the zoos and maybe Louisville, Cincinnati, I'm not really sure, with a lot of Kentucky access, they closed their viewings of the birds. Just touch on how that being identified in Fayette County really affects us here.
Well, that was really a wake-up call, because I think that's the first time that we've had it in the Lexington area. Of course, it's just only the second time ever in the state of Kentucky. So especially with the high-path influenza, but that let everybody know that, hey, it's out there. That really turned on UK's poultry extension. The extension agents said, hey, now we have traction. This is in Fayette County, Kentucky. It was outside of Lexington, but it's in Fayette County. It actually grabbed 4 counties for where it was located. That was deemed a backyard flock, but it was considered poultry as far as sales go, and it did affect international trade. The flock in Louisville, Logan County, the week later, was considered just a backyard flock, which did not affect international trade, but caused us to do additional surveillance in our industry, because we have broiler breeders and broilers in that area.
Thank you. I think it's important for committee members to understand it is right here in Kentucky, and I appreciate you filling us in on that. Thank you.
Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. I've got a quick question. It's more of a global question, and hopefully you'll know the answer to this, being in that industry. Recently, the EU told the farmers in the Netherlands that you have to use 30% less nitrogen. So that's going to catastrophically affect food supply, along with the war in Ukraine, things like that going on. Do you hear much talk about rules from Washington coming down on nitrogen use? That's the negative. If you could comment on that. And then the positive, second part of the question, are you guys able to see this as an opportunity to use the litter, your waste byproduct, as a nitrogen source, and can you market that?
I'll answer the positive first. Yes, definitely. Our poultry litter is a huge part of the poultry industry, especially it follows the commercial market. With the commercial market being as high as it is, the demand for that poultry is unreal. going back 5 years, it depends on where you're at and the quality of your product, but you can get anywhere from $25 a ton to $50 a ton. Now you can't touch stuff for less than $45 a ton. I mean, that's the way it is, the way the market is. It's going to continue to get the demand, but it has a great organic material involved with it as well. So it's a great product, even on cow pasture. I mean, you put it on there once every 5 years, you're going to have a good pasture. So, that's a good demand. We are seeing stuff through USD or through DC that we kind of follow through U.S. Poultry and the Egg Association. A lot of that's through EPA. But with Kentucky Farm Bureau and American Farm Bureau and U.S. Poultry and Egg Association, we try to, watch all that, but we're not seeing any direct effects on us currently.
Representative Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Jamie, thank you for that excellent presentation. Had to, couldn't pass it up.
You're yoking me.
That's good. Well, I just wanted to thank you so much for stepping up during our natural disasters, and thank you for your leadership through all of these AI issues. I think lots of folks know that I'm from Eastern Kentucky, and I know what it meant to those people to be standing in the parking lot at Knott Central High School and see that huge Tyson truck pull up and open its doors and just be crammed full and handing out to those people. So thank you so much for all of that. And I know that you were also that you really stepped up a lot for Western Kentucky folks, helping those that were displaced and feeding people. So just thanks so much for all of that. So you've talked about the State Vets Agency and how we need more folks there, how they can step up. Are there other agencies other state agencies that have stepped up for you, or are there other state agencies that you can think of that should be doing more, or that we could ask to do more to help you guys?
Well, like I said, yes, the Kentucky Department of Agriculture was great, as far as in general, but also State Vet's office as far as they stepped up. They are in desperate need of some help, especially if we have continued outbreaks or issues or things going on. We've always had a great relationship with Governor's Office of Ag Policy. We would like to see, after and Margaret, Murray stepped down. It was we'd like to see that position filled again so we can have that contact. Anything that helps communication with the governor's office would be definitely great for us. With new companies looking to come into the state and also expanding, anything we do with the economic department would definitely be a benefit, just to have a smooth conversation, say, hey, I've heard this is kind of the area they're looking, what can we do? And if they find out something, let us know, because we can say, hey, that may not be the great place for that because of this, this, and this. So anything to do with communication, it's always an issue with communication. Anything we do with any government office to increase communication would be great.
Representative Kulkarni.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your presentation this morning. I just wanted to follow up on a comment that Senator Webb made about automation. And if you weren't aware, draw your attention to an Applied Robotics and Research Institute in Louisville that I believe started last year with a goal to partner with our ag community and help them. So I just wanted to bring your attention to that. In the meantime, I wanted to ask if you'd had any luck with the H-2A visa program with regard to labor.
I'll answer your second question first. With the labor, no, because we're a year-round operation. So unless somebody has a tobacco operation or something else qualifies, we're not available to get the H-2A program. But as far as ag tech goes, that's great. We're on several committees. Anything we can do, and a lot of things I'll tell people as far as how far the poultry industries came, is a farmer can sit on the beach in Florida with a cell phone and adjust fan speeds, as long as we have internet. That's how important Senator Hornback's bill was as far as bringing in broadband for the rural communities. If we don't have internet, that doesn't work. But he can get an alarm saying, and then text his help saying, hey, I got an alarm on house 4. Can you go check, make sure that's just an alarm, not something's wrong? That's regardless of where you're at around the world, as long as you have internet access. So yes, anything we do with ag tech or animation, several of these egg companies that we got coming in, the eggs are never touched by human hands. They're laid by the bird, put on a belt, they're gathered by the machine, they're packed, put on there, and all the farmer does is take the pallet and put it in the cooler.
Thank you. I'd like to connect you all if that's possible.
But yes, please.
I'd like to go back to something you mentioned at the beginning of your talk, and that was keeping young farmers on the farm through poultry, and I would agree. I've seen that firsthand in Western Kentucky. Then you turn around and talked about the flu and how it could sideline that operation for 6 months.
Yes.
Is there livestock insurance available?
Yes, if you have avian influenza, USDA has an identification program that would pay for the birds and also C&D of the farms, because that's usually the most expensive part, getting them cleaned up and everything done as far as regulatory goes. There is avian influenza insurance that a farmer can purchase, but it's limited as far as where you're at and the cost, number of birds, and everything else, and it's up to the individual farm to take that coverage out as a rider on their policies. Not all insurance companies carry it, but most of them do that are dealing with ag. We've worked with Dr. Shockley, Dr. Jordan Shockley at the University of Kentucky, and he's been working on our project saying, hey, when a disaster comes, what part of your operation, where at the beginning or end, do you really need insurance? What type of insurance do you need? Just try to help our farmers understand that, hey, you're a young beginning farmer, you're just starting, you need to have this insurance for the first 5 years. It may affect your bottom line, but if you don't have it, you'll be shut down in 5 years if something was to happen. So that is one of the issues we are following.
Yeah, and I guess where I was going with that is we have crop insurance, federal crop insurance. If memory serves me right, we have federal insurance for cattle growers. Is that something we need to talk to our federal delegation about for other livestock entities, including poultry? The other example that comes to mind is when the tornadoes came through and lost 2 egg hatcheries. And at that time, the comment was we can only get enough eggs for half of our needs. And I was talking to a young man there in Graves County that had just built new poultry houses, had gotten 1 flock of birds through the houses, and now he may have to live on half the income, which is not sustainable. So that's where I guess my mind was going and thinking that's an industry that needs to be protected. It directly affects the food chain.
Yes, and there is identification available through USDA, but the way the ownership of the birds are listed, it muddles that process. So that's part of the issue that we have as far as identification goes. And I believe I know the person you're talking about, brand new farmer. Mm-hmm. He just caught that week, and he said he may not get birds for another month or so. And I said, welcome to the poultry industry. I talked to him outside that female that day, I think the day you were there.
Yes.
And that was one of the things where, with all the things that Pilgrims was going through, they stepped up and paid increased out times. They paid the farmers for not having birds to help them maintain those bills. Mm-hmm. Was it perfect? No, not by any means. But it wasn't mandated in their contracts.
Is he still in business?
I think so. Okay. I hope so.
I haven't talked to him since that day.
A lot of the lending institutions would have we talked through, hey, give us a year grace type deal as far as some of the farmers may need that. And that was a no-brainer for the ones that had damage. But the ones that were not damaged or not directly affected, but were affected because we didn't have the chicks. Yes. And we still had the 2 million eggs a week that we had to send somewhere to hatch, but we had to bring them back to Kentucky. And then, of course, we were running 24/7 on feed and unloading in an old tire mill parking lot just to get feed trucks filled.
Right, I saw that. Do what you have to do. Senator Webb has a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, we're 0 for 3 on location projects. We got 1 in the wings, no pun intended. But I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm sitting here with deja vu on a processing plant that we lost because of failure to communicate between entities and agencies and branches of government. So how was that sufficient with the 3 we lost? Was a poultry, your association involved in the economic development pursuit of these? Was there enough economic development pursuit of these? And where are we with the Wingstop project? And how can we better affect communication along those lines?
Well, with Wingstop, they announced they were looking to build a facility, and that got our attention. We started the process to try to reach out to them. So that's just something we've just now started. On the other ones, a lot of the communication is from the companies, and where it's lack of there, we find out, hey, you're top 3 after they've done several evaluations. So they do a lot of their own stuff. Sometimes they reach out to you, sometimes not. A lot of times I'll find out through sales representatives that sell feed lines, water lines, or builders to say, hey, I've been asked to put plans together for this. Do you know anything about it? And that starts the process. Sometimes companies like CWT that are looking at that I-24 corridor, you know, they got labor from Clarksville or Hopkinsville, and they're looking for a facility to build, but farmers out in the community. They've reached out to us and we're working with them, but their initial reach was to the extension agents in those counties. They bypass us. I think they bypassed the economic office. They bypassed everybody, went straight to the extension to see if it was a viable option and everything else. Now, they'll have a small footprint as far as infrastructure, but it'll have a direct effect on Kentucky's farmers.
Once we get the bite, I mean,
Yep.
is economic development involved in like location, prepping a community for community support, and all those things that are important to a corporate entity when they're looking at these things? Identifying infrastructure, including us if need be. But I don't want to lose another opportunity.
Yeah, the last one I was involved with was a couple of the dog food manufacturers, the Cook Oven, like they went into Logan County there, Champion Dog Food, and there was another one that was coming or looking at coming in Owensboro, and that's when the economic cabinet reached out to me as far as, hey, will this work, and was trying to get them where their products were and everything else. So I think it's hit and miss, and I think some of it's on me as far as not reaching out in time, and I think some of it's on the companies that are coming, like I presented earlier. They came early, they talked, they got everything lined up. They wanted everybody to know. They started at the extension office. And sometimes it's everybody that just kind of drops ball, or it's just not great location. And I think that's part of it. But I think labor is one of the top things they look at as far as evaluation. And where our processing plants are, we're the largest employer in those counties, and sometimes all the surrounding counties as well. And usually those counties' largest employers is the school systems. So when a poultry plant comes, they come with 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 employees needed. And that's just direct report employees, and that's not counting contract labor. That's not counting USDA inspectors. That's not counting the farm labor that's added to the farms.
Is there an ag contact in economic development that you know of, or specifically dedicated ag projects?
Not that I can remember. I think there is, but that's my fault for not being able to recall that name off the top of my head.
Okay, I think we can do better along those lines. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. The Commissioner of Agriculture has been put on that committee now through legislation we passed this past session. Representative King has a follow-up.
Yes, thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair. I appreciate this focus on economic development. Yes, I wanted to remind the committee, the public, and everyone involved that House Bill 390 was passed this year in regular session, passed by the General Assembly. The governor vetoed it. The General Assembly overrode that veto, and then the Secretary of State signed that into functioning law. So now the Commissioner of Agriculture does have representation on the Economic Development Board. So hopefully some of those errors will be remedied in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. That's everyone I had on my list. I think some of these guys are wanting to get back to the farm, get on the combine.
Well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Item number 5, just for consideration, does not require action, but it's the list of administrative regulations. So if any of you have any questions, feel free to contact one of us after the meeting. We won't hold everybody. When I started the meeting, I forgot to ask if anyone had guests they wanted to introduce. If you do, speak up now. If not, our next meeting will be Thursday, November the 3rd, 9 a.m. And thank you. Meeting adjourned.